We are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to BG Podcast number 69. Thanks very much indeed to everyone who's joining in. I can see we've already got people in the chat waiting for us to go live. Got nearly 40 people waiting for this broadcast to go live. So thanks very much indeed to everyone who's choosing to spend their Wednesday evenings with us. Lots of new people to the channel. I know some people are listening in live for the first time tonight. We've had over 100 new subscribers join in the last week alone. So thanks to everyone for joining. One way you can help to support the channel is by hitting the thumbs up button nice and early. The more people who do that, the more visibility this is going to get. And the more new people are going to join the channel. Last week, we had over 200 of you click the thumbs up button, and I cannot express what a difference that makes, guys. So much appreciated. You may be able to hear I'm recovering from a bit of a cold, so apologies if my voice isn't its normal majestic self, but I am going to power through. On the panel tonight, I'm joined by Jay and by Jet. Irish Tom will be joining. He will join very shortly, I'm sure. Paul, I'm afraid, isn't able to make it this week. So, yeah, we're going to start by talking about last week's boxing. Of course, we'll move swiftly on to the news in the sport and then focus on the future fights in boxing. Now, I'm actually away for the next fortnight. I'm away for the next 2 weeks, everyone. So we're going to discuss boxing and the major fights for the next 3 weekends, because there's not going to be a podcast next weekend or the weekend after that. So tonight might be a slightly extended podcast, and we're going to start by talking about Hughie Fury versus Joseph Parker. So before we get into that topic and before we send it out to the rest of the panel, I've actually got something that I want to get a little bit off my chest here. I wanted specifically to Compubox stats, which have been published with relation to this fight. So just give me 2 minutes, just let me burn on the Compubox, and then we'll go and we'll bring in Jet. I'm not going to talk myself about the fight because my coverage of that fight and my opinion of that fight is already up on the channel in separate videos. But I'm going to talk about the Compubox, then we'll go to the rest of the panel and we'll get their thoughts on the fight and, see if they're picking Hughie Fury to win, or see if they think Joseph Parker won the fight. So with regards to the Compubox numbers, since Hughie Fury versus Joseph Parker, I have been sent the Compubox numbers over 100 times, either in YouTube comments, Facebook, Twitter, etc. Now, some people have sent me the Compubox numbers just looking to share information. And if you've done that, no problem whatsoever. Other people are sharing the Compubox numbers saying, look, you've been proved wrong, BG. Hughie Fury didn't win the fight. Here's some definitive proof that Parker won the fight. I've had it referred to as definitive proof. I've had it referred to as factual on numerous occasions. Now, firstly, whilst I agree that Compubox numbers can be a general indicator, let us agree first and foremost that they are definitive proof of zero. Throwing more punches and even landing more punches does not necessarily mean you win a fight. I'd agree it's an indicator, but it is by no means conclusive proof that you have won a fight. Let me give you an example. Floyd versus Marcus Maidana. Marcus Maidana threw more than double the amount of punches that Floyd Mayweather threw. More than double. And Floyd Mayweather won that fight. I'm sure the vast majority of us would agree. So don't think that these Compubox numbers that show Joseph Parker in a favourable light are definitive proof. They are an indicator he did well in the fight, I would agree, but you can't just wheel them out and say it's a fact that Parker won. Secondly, Compubox is actually nothing more than guys sitting in a room pressing a button when they believe a punch has been thrown. It's not some sort of robot or some bit of artificial intelligence that's accurately computing what's going on. It's some bloke sitting there watching a fight, pressing a button, someone throws a punch. It's no different to you or I sitting at home on our sofas watching a fight. So rather than putting so much stock into Compubox numbers, judge the fight by your own eyes. If you believe Joseph Parker won the fight, absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that. That's your opinion. But don't have your opinion fully informed by Compubox numbers, or don't think that necessarily represents definitive proof, because it's no different to to anyone else's opinion sitting at home watching a fight. And the final thing, for those who've been wheeling out the Compubox numbers, a lot of people throwing the Compubox numbers at me and then criticising Hughie Fury and saying, look, proof. According to those Compubox numbers, and I'm not even sure I buy into them, but according to the numbers that, as I say, I've been sent 100 times, including 5 times by one individual, I should add, Hughie Fury actually landed more jabs in the fight than Joseph Parker. And interestingly, Hughie Fury threw more punches in total than Joseph Parker. So perhaps those who are saying Hughie Fury did nothing in the fight, perhaps those who are saying Hughie Fury was far too negative in the fight, should think twice about making those comments and then throwing out the Compubox numbers. Because actually, the guy who did nothing but run and the guy who was too negative, according to Compubox, actually threw far more punches than Joseph Parker. So look, I wanted to get that off my chest. I had, as I say, over 100 comments about the Compubox, so I thought I was going to address them on the podcast tonight. If I get that many comments about a particular issue, I don't want to just push it under the carpet. So that's my response. By all means, they're an indicator, but Compubox is not definitive proof. And as I say, before you're criticising Hughie Fury for doing nothing in the fight, factor in that he actually threw more according to your own figures. Anyway, rant over. You've heard enough of me about this fight on the channel this week, so let me go to someone far more sensible and bring in Jet. Jet, sorry about the rant. How are you?
I'm good. I enjoyed that rant. It's good. It's good to get it off your chest sometimes.
Yeah. I needed to let loose there, mate. Without further ado, Jet, give us your take on this fight.
Yeah, I watched your post-fight breakdown of it, and hey, I got to agree. I can't. I don't see where the difficulty is in sort of scoring this fight. I thought Hughie won pretty handily. Parker didn't do enough for me. I know people are saying Parker bought the pace, and he pushed the action, and he threw the bigger and meaningful punches. But as we just spoke offline, I mean, if you give it, if you kind of have him winning, then you should, in the same instance, you should have Marcus Maidana winning. I said the exact same thing. My cousin said the same thing as well. I mean, it makes no sense. Some of the abuse that Hughie's been getting, and some of the people that have been picking Hugh as well, is nonsensical. I think it doesn't make any sense. I just think Hughie he made Parker look very average in there. That's kind of what I take from the fight. For me, he won the fight, but people are gonna go back and forth over the scorecards. I thought he won by at least 8-4. That I gave it 9-3, but I think he at least won 8-4. There's no point even focusing on that, because I know people are going to say Parker won. So I understand, fair enough. But Parker's going to get smashed by any top 10 heavyweight for me. I know Fury made him look bad, but for me, Parker's regressed. He's gone backwards. He's put on about 30-40 pounds of muscle, and he can't throw a jab anymore. Parker looked poor, very poor. And I've been a Joseph Parker fan. Back in the day, I feel when Joshua turned pro, Parker was on the way up. I thought, Parker's gonna, if Parker and AJ have a fight, Parker would cause him some serious problems. And now AJ would just walk through him. He would absolutely walk through him. And I like Parker, but this is boxing. You gotta look at it objectively. And I see some people saying you're an idiot in the comments. I don't care. I really don't. I don't give a toss about anyone's opinion. You make an opinion. You make what your eyes see. If your eyes see, Hughie winning, Hughie's won. If you see Parker winning, Parker's won. But just for me, Hughie done the better work, the cleaner work. I think people are kind of overlooking it. Parker, he brought the pace, brought the action, but loads of his big, heavy shots, so to speak, they were hitting, arms, and they were missing wildly. So, you got to look at it objectively. I think I don't know. You just got to look at it objectively. I think people are kind of looking at it from a fan perspective. I think, yeah, that's all I really have to say on it. I just think Hughie done the better work, and he looked, he looked the better boxer in there. He looked the more astute boxer. He knew what he was doing. I thought he could have done more. Don't get me wrong. I thought he could have done more. I understand why people pick Parker, but even then, Hughie still, still did enough to win the fight, even if you have it close. I know some people had it 7-5. Some people had it a draw. I understand why. Hughie's sort of style isn't pleasing, but for me, he still did enough, and he's a problem for any top heavyweight. I think that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I guess the difficulty for Hughie, Jet, is now he's lost. His marketability is affected. So, for example, if Anthony Joshua fought Hughie Fury and Joshua beat Hughie Fury, he would actually get the minimum of credit for that win. It wouldn't be a big win for Joshua. The public consensus wouldn't give him a huge amount of praise. But people in boxing know, especially after that fight, that Hughie represents a very, very tough test, especially stylistically. So I actually think it's going to be very difficult for Hughie Fury to bounce back from this. He's not a huge name. He's not a huge ticket seller. His style isn't going to appeal to the masses. Where's he going to go from here? How's he going to get the big fights?
Yeah, you know what? It's tough. I actually watched your video about, when you did a roundup, and I thought the exact same when you said Danny Jacobs. They're in very similar positions. Danny Jacobs, obviously, he lost the fight early in his career, but he's lost a big fight against Golovkin. And I know we're going to talk about it later on the show, but they're in a similar position. They represent high risk, low reward, low reward sort of options. They're very, very good fighters in their own right, but no one's really going to want to face them after seeing how they've done, against sort of very good operators. Parker is a good operator. Don't get me wrong. People are saying, "Oh well, I don't like Parker at all." I do, but Hughie just made him look bad in there. I think that is a lot to do with Hughie. I mean, it looked very bad, and he would do that potentially to a lot of heavyweights, maybe like a Wilder or Joshua, who'd probably the top, 2 out of 3 or 4. I know they're up there, and he caused them a lot of problems, maybe until he gets caught or something, because he does tend to get caught. He did get caught a few times by Parker, and Parker's kind of an inferior boxer to someone like a Joshua, who's a bit more astute, and maybe not a Wilder, but Wilder's got that equalizer and that big power in the right hand. So yeah, it's difficult to see where Hughie goes. They're talking Lucas Brown next, potential rematch. I think Lucas Brown could be a good opponent. He could come back against, and I think he could do well against. But then again, Brown obviously done well against Chagayev. He was on the Peds, but yeah, someone like that, kind of just outside the top 10, or in the top 20, would be a good sort of opponent. But yeah, it's going to be tough to match him, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult road back. Okay. Thanks, Jet. 2 of us with Hughie Fury. Jay, let's bring yourself in, mate. Give us your take on this fight.
Well, it was a messy fight. Let's get it right. It wasn't, from a casual perspective, it wasn't pleasant on the eye. This is why you get so many people backing Parker, that he won this fight, because of the pressure. A lot of people, when they watch heavyweight fights, they want to see two big guys in the center of the ring punching the shit out of each other. Maybe possibly being spoiled with Joshua and Vladimir, with the all action, the big bombs, the knockdowns, the drama. But there's 2 sides to boxing. There's a sweet science. There's a boxer, and there's a puncher. There's a brawler. There's someone who will move. Hughie Fury is 23 years old. He moved so well. He moves so well for such a big guy. And you watch him and you watch Tyson, and you definitely see the similarities. You see how Peter Fury trains his fighters to move. It's about moving, boxing, not getting hit. Parker rushed forward. His work was messy. He swung. He missed a lot of shots, hit a lot of arms. Although, watching it back again today for the second time, you know, Huey missed a lot of jabs. There was a lot of jabs coming short. I still had Huey, who won the fight for me by 2-3 rounds. Not as wide as the judges. I don't really know what the judges were watching. I mean, people say that it's different when you're at the sidelines and you're close to the action, that, you know, you may be able to see those shots that maybe aren't connecting, that we kind of don't see from a television perspective. But saying that, I don't think Parker is bad. I don't think all of a sudden he's become shit. I think it's Huey's movement, because heavyweight boxers aren't used to fighting people that move. They're brought up on fighting people that are going to stand in front of them, because it's not rare. It's rare that a 16, 17, 18 stone guy can move around the ring so well. They practice it so much, the Furies, and their game plan was pretty much the game plan that Tyson used against Klitschko, and it will be their game plan in every fight going forward. That's what they do. That is their style. That is how they want to win fights, because I don't think Huey hasn't got the biggest punching power. Tyson hasn't got the biggest punching power. And when we saw Tyson fight Cunningham and he stood there and fought, he got knocked down. And they know that, and they realise that. So the best way to negate that is to move, and move quickly. Parker didn't know what to do. And I don't think there is a heavyweight that would know what to do with Huey or Tyson, because they're so, as I said, they move so well. And it's rare that you see fighters like this. I just think that you know, the cleaner work for myself, from my perspective, was Huey's work. But I'm a fan of the mover. I'm a fan of the boxer. Not so much. I don't think pressure brings you a win, especially when if it was sustained pressure that was brought by accuracy of punches and clean shots, then you can understand it. But it wasn't there. The accuracy wasn't there. So for me, Huey moving off the ropes, he turned Parker really well at times. I think possibly he could have done with a warm-up fight. I think he was out a little bit too long, and he needed that warm-up fight, because he wasn't letting his hands go maybe as much as he should. And I know Peter Fury has admitted to that. But to call him what some people have said, that he ran all night, I've got a friend that said, you know, I don't want to watch that. He just ran all night. And this is someone who knows his boxing. So I was really surprised for him to say that. But if you want to see running from boxing, watch Malik Scott and Ortiz. That's running. What Huey Fury was doing was boxing, and boxing clever. The guy's 23 years old. You know, we have to understand he's 23 years old. He showed such maturity in that fight and such a boxing brain. You know, there's no wonder he was a world amateur champion, because there's going to be very few heavyweights in the world that will be able to deal with that sort of movement. Anyone with any sort of movement for a heavyweight is going to, any mover in boxing, whatever the division, is always going to cause problems. And I say every week, a mover, someone who can use the ring, you know, the space in that ring, it's a certain size for a reason. It's to use, that space is to be used. It's not to stand in the middle and trade punches. That's not boxing clever. So for me, going back to it, I think, you know, Huey won that fight, and he won it. You know, I said with 2 rounds to go on Twitter that I said, like, you know, Parker's going to need a knockout. That's the only way he's going to win this fight. And you can see at the end of the fight, you saw Parker's reaction. You saw it in his face. His head was down. He knew he'd lost that fight. He knew it. Anyone that doesn't believe it, go back and watch the end when they're standing in the ring together with the referee, waiting for the result, and you could see Parker's face. Look at him. The reaction was there. You know, he was lucky. He got off lightly on that one. You know, and if I were him, I'd go back, fight some average top 10 fighters and wait for that big fight, and then get the money, because, you know, I don't think he will be able to deal with. He'll do better against a Joshua and a Wilder and someone who stands in front of him. But that's going to be his big money payday, because he's very, very lucky still to be world champion.
Absolutely. Jay, on the scoring, how big a impact do you think the Canelo-Golovkin fight, and also David Higgins interrupting the press conference to talk about Terry O'Connor's role in the fight, how big an influence do you think they had on the wide scoring?
I'd hate to think it did have an impact. I really do, especially with what David Higgins said. You know, the British Board of Boxing Control really need to take a serious look at themselves. Those 2 scorecards were just... I don't see how you can score for someone Terry O'Connor, someone who's been around boxing so long, and someone who probably has a great love and respect for boxing, to give it that wide, it's just, I don't get it. I really don't understand it. And maybe they, being closer up, as I said, maybe they saw things that I didn't see. But Parker was wild. His punches were wild. But as I said, he didn't know what to do. There was. I think I tweeted, Parker went from plan A to plan A to plan A. There was no plan B. There was no plan C. He didn't know what to do. And all the time, he was not in control of that fight. Hughie Fury was in control of that fight, and that showed from the outside. And that should have shown in the points scoring. But I think, with the outrage and the worldwide outrage, that Canelo Triple G scoring, if they're affected by that, then it's twice that we've been sold down the river on this one, and it puts a bad taste in my mouth when I see scoring like this, and I'm not surprised. I think Mick Hennessy's words after the fight were a bit. But that's in the heat of the moment. That's when he's hyped up. So the shades of Ali thing, let's not get it wrong. It wasn't shades of, well, he moved maybe a heavyweight in the last, 30 years, that 40, 50, 60 years that have moved like Ali, no one. So there is sort of a reminiscent, partially, very small reminiscent of a movement fighter, movement heavyweight. But I'd be sad to think that those scores were affected by something that happened in a different weight division, in a different fight altogether, in a different country. It's worrying if that's the case.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, in that fight, there was huge upset that the judges had credited Canelo with as many rounds as they did, when Canelo was the sort of back foot guy. The public consensus was that Golovkin won, and won well, and that was largely because he was the front foot, come forward, aggressive fighter. And judges looked at Adelaide Bird and thought, wow, we do not want to be Adelaide Bird next week. And then when they saw a fight that was actually a come forward, aggressive fighter versus a back foot fighter, I wonder if that was what's playing in their heads. It's funny with boxing. Let me tell you one thing. If that was Floyd Mayweather versus Maidana, and Floyd was Hughie, and Maidana was Parker, there is no way Floyd would have lost that fight, because there's certain fighters out there like Floyd who they've just got such a reputation as these back foot defensive masters, etc. That the judges are inclined to score it to them. But I don't know. I was disappointed with the scorecards. I think even those who think Parker won the fight, and I think that's there's some perfectly sensible, logical people who think that, but even those surely would have a problem with the scorecards. But anyway, let me bring in Irish Tom. Let's let him out of the cage. 150 of you guys watching live, so thanks to everyone for joining. Please hit the thumbs up button. Iris, good evening. Give us a sound check.
Testing.
Yeah, you're good, mate. You're good. Throw your hat into the ring on this fight then, pal.
Well, what a bunch of bums this podcast is full of. All these whinging palms complaining that their man got shafted on their home soil and everything. What a pack of losers.
Bearing in mind, you scored the fight to Mr. Fury as well, I believe.
No, I don't understand what these people are. Jay is saying like that, Packer didn't do much. But did anybody see the body attack? Did you see the state of like Hughie's chest and arms and back after that fight?
It's a wonder Hughie made it 12. The amount of work Parker was landing on him, isn't it?
Tell you, Hughie would be scarred for life after that.
Yeah, I hear you. You're making your point well, Iris. Go on now. Give us your real take.
Well, I was disappointed in Hughie. I think he won, but I think he was disappointing. I gave it like 7-5 for Hughie. Well, I couldn't argue with a draw. And I probably couldn't argue with 7-5 the other way. And I could give Hughie 8-4 fairly easy too. I just think, like when you're playing football or soccer or something, you're playing five-a-side or something, and there's a fella remember there's this guy I played against one time, and I just thought he was the greatest player I ever played against. He was doing nutmegs and every type of trick under the sun. And then I played him like the second week, and I just knew his tricks. And then you just like, he's just going to try and do the fancy thing the whole time. And sometimes fighters and footballers and all this, they get kind of like addicted to something that they're good at. And I feel like that's it with Hughie. He's addicted to like slipping punches and riding and going back to the ropes and not getting hit. But the thing is, he doesn't apply enough aggression. It's one thing like when we talk about when Floyd won those fights, most of the time he was still scoring clean, effective punches in the rounds. And a good few of them, maybe 20, maybe he's throwing 35 punches around and he's landing 15 clean shots. Well, Hughie was only landing about 7 clean punches in those rounds. And Parker was landing about 4. You know what I mean? Now, I still think the rounds should go to Hughie if the punches are hard enough. And and he is winning the ring generalship kind of stuff. But, there's a amount of times when Hughie was standing in the center of the ring and he was feinting and he jabbed that and then he would retreat to ropes. If he had just basically followed his jab with a right hand, just like 4 or 5, maybe 6 times extra around, it's not going to take it out of you. Doing that's going to mean that you're going to have to run less. Like just that little bit of aggression alone would have won him that fight if the judging was fair. But so I think Hughie, I don't think Hughie was ever getting the decision, but I think he did not perform as good as he could. I thought that he made a bit of a mess of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's a fair point, Iris. And I would actually say, and I have said this in my post-fight videos, that whilst I think Hughie won the fight and won the fight well, I would say that he did need to do more. And I would say that it wasn't the best performance from him for exactly the reasons that you've just put out. What did you make of the scoring, Iris?
Well, look, I was thinking about it. Before the fight, I never, usually I like to think I'm all clued into the politics of all this stuff and, no, it'll be a robbery before it happens and all that. But, sometimes after the fact, you just come up with a theory and it's bullshit. But when I was thinking about it, I was like going, let's look at who, cui bono, who benefits. Eddie Hearn wants Parker to win because Parker against AJ is a much more winnable and more exciting stylistic fight, or Bellew. So the 2 biggest promoters in England win. Then you've got Bob Arum, one of the biggest promoters in America, and he's got options on Parker, so he wants him to win. And then you've got on the other side, you've got Al Heyman, who wants to make Wilder or Ortiz versus Parker. So basically, you've got the 4 top promoters in the world, essentially, all want Hughie to lose. And then you get some bad scorecards. That's the way I look at it.
I mean, Irish, you do manage to find the corruption in everything. But yeah. I mean, the way you've just put it, I don't.
Like everybody want.
But I can certainly see that. What the Furies are saying is that this is punishment for Tyson Fury's comments.
What was his comments?
Well, all of the comments he's made about, boxing and all of the unpolitically correct comments that he's made outside of the ring, they're saying that there's an agenda against the Fury name.
No, look, I think if Frank Warren was having that show and it was on, if it was on BT Sports, Hughie wins the fight. I genuinely believe that. The scorecards will go in his favour. Look at the last Terry Flanagan fight. Who did he fight?
Yeah, I know who you mean.
Who was it?
Boxer.
Petrov.
Yeah, that's it.
And Terry Flanagan got like a 120, 108 card. That's equivalent to the Joseph Parker card. And also he was a threat to the television companies. Didn't want him winning because they want to keep pay-per-view on their show, on their platforms. They don't want to shift it over to YouTube. BT want him to lose. ITV want him to lose. Sky want him to lose. Motors in America. The only people I wanted him to win was like Mick Hennessy and the Furies. So like, I just think, people, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I just think it's the business. People want Joe. Fury wasn't, even though he was at home and he was a home promoter, he wasn't the A side for all the people in the boxing business. Huey's like, Huey has got amazing footwork. People will like slag him for running and that, but like, there's no boxer in the heavyweight division like him. Huey's got better footwork, probably better defensive footwork, different type of footwork, say, even than, I would think, than what do you call the cruiserweight? Usyk. Yeah, there's no one in the light heavyweight division with his footwork. There's no one in the super middleweight division in his footwork. There's no one in the middleweight division with his footwork. You have to literally, maybe you can make a case with Danny Jacobs. I think you have to go like to Lara. He's like the heavyweight version of Lara, but Lara puts his punches together better than Huey. So I think Huey's defensive work in the fight, to be honest with you, it was kind of like a 10 out of 10. You can't fault him. He's got like amazing defensive ability on the back foot, and he's got amazing legs for a heavyweight. But he's in love with that, and there's not enough aggression in it. And who's going to fight him? When's the last time Lara had a proper fight? Huey's going to be the same. He's going to be fighting losers. He's going to be fighting guys who need the money in the top 20 and 30, and he'll struggle ever to get ranked again. Unless he bends the knee, to Frank Warren or Eddie Hearn or someone.
I think it's going to be hard for them. He's not a huge ticket seller. He's not a huge pay-per-view draw. It's going to be very, very hard for them to get the big name opponents in for him, surely.
Yeah, and look, Mick Hennessy's just not a good promoter. Call a spade a spade. Look what Mick Hennessy did with Carl Froch, an exciting fighter and everything. And he was on some weird pay-per-view channel in the middle of nowhere.
One question I've got to ask you, and it's not because I necessarily think it's going to happen. In fact, I actively don't think it's going to happen, but at least half a dozen people have asked me to ask you this, is after the fight, how would you see a future matchup between Huey Fury and Joshua going if it were to happen?
Look, Huey's going to give a hard fight to anybody in that division. There's no boxer in the division that's going to look good against Huey, unless they manage to really rush him and spark him. But maybe somebody like Deontay Wilder might just literally knock him out in 2 rounds and catch him. That could be a possibility. Say maybe more so than Joshua. I think maybe he's more faster and he's longer. But he's the exact type of opponent to make Joshua look bad. Huey will never get that fight. No, Huey will never get a fight with those guys unless he bends the knee, and then he's not going to get a decision. If he fights Joshua, and let's say he does more aggression, and he does a similar, say he's more aggressive and he wins the rounds more clearer, and people aren't complaining as much about the running as this time, and you could be watching it and say you give him 10 rounds, he'll still lose.
Yeah, and I guess because he doesn't have that devastating power, he's likely going to have a few decisions over the course of his career. So it could be a recurring problem for him.
Yeah, and the thing is, like that Lara versus Canelo fight. I watch that one now, and I get that to Canelo. Even though Lara was effective on the back foot, Canelo landed a lot of power punches. You see, the Compubox stats had them level in shots landed, but half of Canelo's shots were power punches, and only a fifth of Lara's ones were. So I get that to Canelo, and this fight was kind of similar, except Parker just didn't land the punches. But I don't think that. Look, a Styles makes fight. I saw Parker is live against AJ. I don't think that has any bearing on the AJ fight. I think it's got nearly no bearing on that fight.
Yeah, I agree. I think Parker looked very bad against a guy who moved like Huey, but AJ's in many ways, AJ's has a lot more attributes that Huey doesn't have. But I think we also need to recognise that Huey stylistically brings certain things to the table that AJ doesn't, and I guess AJ is going to be more there for Parker to actually get stuck into than Huey was.
Yeah, I agree.
Good stuff. All right, guys. I've also heard from Paul on this. Paul had Hughie Fury winning the fight, and he had Hughie Fury winning the fight by some margin. So I'm afraid to say it because I know it's going to have some people spontaneously combusting with rage even. But as a panel of 5, we are united that Hughie Fury won the fight. So there you go. Bring on the hate. Let's move it on because we've spent 40 minutes on one fight and there's quite a lot of other boxing to talk this week. Guys, what I'm going to do is just shout out a fight, and anyone who wants to join and comment on that fight can join. I'm not going to go around the panel again. Let's start with Luke Campbell versus Linares, another one that actually caused some controversy in terms of the scoring. What did we make of this fight?
I thought Linares won 7-5, but you could argue a case maybe Campbell won 7-5. He did control the middle rounds, but it's difficult, mate. I think it's a bit more difficult to give it to Campbell. I could see why people give it to Campbell, but I'd probably just say Linares on being a bit more effective. Probably 7-5. It's a close fight though. It was. I did say on my channel, Luke Campbell would give him a lot of problems, and I thought he did give him a lot of problems after the second round knockdown. So, obviously it was 7-5, but then the extra point, so Linares by 3 on my scorecard. Linares versus Garcia would be a good fight. I know obviously he's called him out, but yeah, that would be a good fight.
Yeah, I agree, Jet. I had Linares by 3 as well. Can Luke Campbell come again?
Definitely, mate. I think, he's one of the fighters. He can win a world title, but I think it has to be against the right opponent. I think Robert Easter's a beatable opponent, I think when they announced the fight, I thought, why didn't they go for Robert Easter? Terry Flanagan, obviously, there's boxing politics there with Eddie and Frank. But I think those 2 champions are beatable. I don't think, he's come up against a very, I'd say a pound for pound offensively top 10 fighter. Defensively, Linares not so much, but offensively he's got fantastic skills. And Luke Campbell gave him a lot of problems. So he deserves a lot of heart, obviously, for the news that's come out. Obviously with his father. So you have to give him a lot of credit and give him a lot of respect as well. So he's done really well. I think against the right opponent, he should do well, but he is getting older. He's 30. I think today was his birthday. I saw it on Twitter. So he's no spring chicken. He needs to get a move on, and obviously he's going to get a bit bigger for the weight class. He might not be able to weight the weight properly. He's we've seen him struggle against Mendy in the weight class. So he didn't disgrace himself. He done very, very well, and just probably get back maybe 1-2 warm-up fights and then into a big fight again for him.
Absolutely. Okay. Anyone else got any thoughts on Linares, Luke?
Yeah, I think Luke Campbell did better than I thought he would, to be honest. I didn't think he looked completely out of his depth. I thought he looked like he belonged in that sort of category. I don't think it was vintage Linares. He didn't look as sharp as I've seen him before. I think it was a bit tentative first couple of rounds. After the knockdown, Linares tend to pick it up a little bit. I think Luke Campbell, the problem that he showed, there wasn't enough output from him. When he did string 3-4 punch combinations together, he caused Linares a few problems and he looked more effective. I like the way he worked the head and the body. That was definitely something he was looking for. He did this, he tends to do this little side step, which I've noticed he's picked up, which he never really did before. So I reckon the influence of that new trainer is really starting to kick in. And I think he'll definitely win a title. I thought he looked a lot better than as I said than I thought he would. But I think Linares just snipped it. But I think if Linares fights Garcia, there's only one winner for me in that fight. Garcia smokes him completely. I think Linares is on a bit of a decline now, and I think that showed really on Saturday night. But yeah, I thought Campbell did all right. Bit tentative to start off with, and as I said, if he got more output, put more combinations together instead of a one jab, a jab, then a cross. You know, there just it wasn't busy enough. When he did do that, he started to make a few inroads, and at times, you know, Linares struggled with those combinations. So, yeah, but as I said, Linares, Garcia all day, every day.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good comment. I think Luke didn't look out of his depth, although didn't do enough to win. Linares, is he on the slide? I don't know. I think maybe the Anthony Crolla fights massively flattered him. I was looking back at something I put on Facebook a year ago, and I was tipping Linares to win the fight at 13-8 with the bookmakers. So in other words, if you put a pound on, you got about £2.60 back. And in hindsight, it is absolutely remarkable that he went into that Crolla fight as a substantial underdog. You know, that is remarkable. Crolla was tailor-made for him, flattered him, and Linares beat him badly twice. But maybe, you know, the hype around Crolla, well, certainly the hype around Crolla was a bit exaggerated. And, yeah, maybe that form isn't overly strong in hindsight, I guess you could say. Irish, you got anything to add on that topic, mate, or move on?
Yeah, no, I just think that I didn't have it as close as people thought. I had it like an 8-4 fight, and with a knockdown, so I did 116, 111. I thought, you know, the fight kind of played out like I expected, to be honest, because he's got fast hands, Luke Campbell, and he's long. He's got long arms, and he's tall, so he's just going to be stylistically, you know, tough. For someone like Linares, he's not very tall at the weight. You know, how many inches given up? He must be giving up 3 inches in height, let's say.
Doesn't help that
so
it's very upright as well. Sorry, Irish. It doesn't help that he's very upright.
Yeah, totally. So he'll find it hard to find him. But the thing is, like, Luke Campbell, you know, did all right in those. There was probably the back 6 round. I had him 5 rounds to 1 down with a knockdown halfway. And then if we split the last 6 rounds, which is probably reasonable because they're all very 50-50-ish rounds, it's an 8-4 fight. That's the way I look at it. And I think Luke Campbell did grand, but, you know, it's just a stylistic poor matchup for Linares, I think, as well. So, you know, but Mikey Garcia knocks him out in 5 rounds.
Fair. I think there's very few people still confidently picking Linares after seeing his recent fight and after seeing some of Garcia's recent fight. What about Dorticos in the World Boxing Super Series? He scored an early KO over Kudryashov. Are we impressed?
Yeah, the man is a beast. And he looks like what was that fella that fought for a world title fight? A British guy, used to be a kickboxer. Matt
Skelton.
Something. Matt Skelton. He looks like a cruiserweight Matt Skelton. There's no definition on him. He looks a bit flabby. He fucking hits like a mule. Either that or your man Kudryashov is shot, which could be the case. But, he's tough. And he's not even big for a cruiserweight. And he just blew him away. You know, he's going to be a threat to anybody. Well, I suppose there's a lot of them who can bang, but he looks like he's legit heavy hands. What I don't know, all I couldn't understand is, like, I was thinking his power probably wasn't that much beforehand. Because when I looked at his record, what do you call that guy that Kelly Pavlik bet at middleweight?
Yeah, I know.
In a war.
Miranda, is it?
Edison Miranda. And Edison Miranda went the distance with him. Like, how tough is Edison Miranda to go up from middleweight to cruiserweight and go to the distance with a killer like that? So, like, I wasn't expecting to be a puncher to that extent. But, that's, it's the equivalent of the GGG Curtis Stevens knockdown. A hell of a knockdown.
Yeah, I do think Kudryashov is chinny. I've seen him hurt in the past. But the thing about Dorticos is he must just be one of these guys. He's not athletic. He's not got amazing hand speed or like a ridiculous build with loads of muscle. He just must naturally be like very, very heavy-handed, I guess.
I said I said last week that this guy is someone that you need to watch, because the thing is about him, he's not an orthodox Cuban, but he's got really good accuracy. If his punches were right on the button every time, he wasn't missing, and he seemed to. I mean, he was a great little fight. That really was for as long as it lasted, because Kudinov went out fast and he went out hard, but he's never fought out of Russia. The guy's never fought. He may have this unbeaten knockout record, but he's never fought out of Russia. And I knew it would finish early, but as you said, he doesn't look. If you compared the two, even though they say the opponent is the Russian is possibly on some sort of stimulant. If you look at the pair, physique-wise, you'd think the one is, naturally the one would be a bigger puncher. And you're right, he doesn't look like he really punches that hard, but it's the accuracy that he throws those punches. They're right on the button every time, and he's definitely an underdog, but someone I reckon who could surprise a few people going forward.
Yeah, I want to see more of him now. I wonder if he's one of these guys, whenever you see a puncher like that, you kind of wonder, are they just relying on the punching power? If someone can live with him for a few rounds, how will he be able to box? But I haven't seen a lot of him, so maybe I need to see a bit more of him.
He took some good shots as well, though. He took some shots for that first round.
Yeah.
He let the pressure come on in him a little bit, and you probably thought at that point he wasn't going to come out on top, and then he's obviously quite very handy because it obviously shook the guy to his core. So yeah, it was an interesting fight, and a fight that if that fight had been Fury Parker, people would have been applauding and loving it because they just stood there and they just traded, and that's what people want to see, the blood sport.
Definitely. Okay. Let's ask about Gilberto Ramirez versus Jesse Hart. Who saw that?
I only saw the highlights, so I don't really want to comment, really.
I saw it.
Just before we go into it, I'm not sure if one of you guys has some sort of background noise with a bit of beeping in the background. Like, I can hear it. People in the chat are complaining about it. So if that is one of you, if we do anything to stop it, that would be fantastic. But otherwise, let's crack on. Jet, what was your take on that one, mate?
I don't know if it's me. Don't think so. But yeah, I thought Hart was decent. He put up a good showing. He seems. I did a sort of fight video on it. Thought he was. He is skillful, Jesse Hart. I think he's a fairly decent fighter. But I just thought Ramirez would be a bit too much. He'd be a bit, he'd have a bit more skills, a bit more tools in his arsenal. And thing with Ramirez is he kind of gives up his advantages. He's massive at super middleweight, and he doesn't really use the jab. He likes to get, caught up in a war, makes the fight, I guess, harder for himself. But still does very good. Still does very good when he comes on the inside and comes in close in that free sort of quarter range. And thought he did well against Jesse Hart. Jesse Hart showed a lot of heart and a lot of no pun intended. But he showed a lot of spirit sort of to keep going after the knockdown. So did well. Ramirez moves onwards and upwards. Decent showing. Didn't look as good as I thought he might have, but nonetheless he looked decent. But there's some big fights out there for him. I think he's a Mexican that obviously lives in America, Ramirez. So Benavidez would be a big fight, I reckon, or a bigger fight than initially thought. Callum Smith, is a monster at the weight, depending on how he comes out of the WBSS. And James DeGale, possibly. There's some big fights out there for him. So Ramirez looked good, but, still not sold on him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think Hart's decent, though. I think Hart is a really good fighter. I think he can come again.
Yeah.
Iris, give us your take on it, mate.
Talking to me?
Yes, mate. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I was actually impressed with Ramirez. The times I've seen him fighting would be very boring back foot fighting. The Abraham's fight was absolute. It's like watching grass grow. But this time he went forward. He's up against a guy who was actually looked a bit taller than him and a little bit rangier than him. And he was actually really quite good coming forward. And he put it on him. And, I think Hart is kind of sloppy, though. I think, Hart might look good against most fighters of a poorer level. But I thought he was quite sloppy. And I thought I thought he won quite wide. I thought I'd give it to him. I know some of the scorecards were reasonably close. I think it was like a 9-3, 8-4 kind of a fight with a knockdown. But I was impressed with him. You know, I think he is definitely in the mix there. I would like to see him versus Benavidez. I think that would be a great fight. Two tall guys, two Mexican guys going to bring it. I think that would be an excellent fight. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I actually think super middleweight's looking more interesting now. You've got those guys and the Gale outside the tournament, and then you've got some pretty big names in the mix in there. I don't think that division is anywhere near as bad as some people say it is.
Yeah, I think it's coming to life again a bit, you know, and you might get a few new kind of unexpected names come through this tournament. You never know. So, you know, it's not the wasteland it was a couple of years ago. I think it's starting to look a bit more lively. Absolutely.
Okay, guys, that covers fights from last week. Before we move it on, has anyone got anything else to say on any of the action that's already taken place? Cool. Okay.
Was there not other fights as well? Was there not Oscar Valdez? Was he not fighting as well?
He did fight. I didn't actually see him. I think he was in against someone overmatched, was he?
Yeah, I didn't see him. Oscar Valdez.
What, Valdez lost?
No, he won the fight, but he got knocked down.
Oh, he got knocked down?
Yeah. He was a bit sloppy in the fight. He didn't look as good as... It was kind of a showcase for him on the undercard, but he didn't look as... I don't feel like he looked as good as, you know, he could have. Let's put it that way.
Was he hurt or was he just tipped off balance?
It was... I thought he was a bit sloppy. I think it was just more like a balance thing, but... You know, as I said, Valdez, I heard Carl Frampton actually not call him out today. He had a press conference signing for, obviously, Frank. So he's obviously like, that's potential fight. I'd like to see Frampton versus Valdez. I think Frampton will give him problems. But yeah, he's a good fighter. I like him. Exciting guy.
Cool. Okay, let's move it on. Let's talk some of the sport in the some of the news even in the sport of boxing. Jarrell Miller versus Marius Wack. I think this is a really, really good bit of matchmaking. What Jarrell Miller needs is someone who's going to give him rounds, someone who's going to test his stamina a bit, maybe someone who's going to try and catch him coming in. And I think that's exactly what Marius Wack is going to do. He famously went the distance against Klitschko. He went very, very deep into a fight with Povetkin. Good test for Miller, guys?
Definitely. I think Marius Wack is a solid operator. You know, he's a sort of European level fighter, and he'll give you know a lot of people problems if you're not ready, and it will kind of gauge how and where Miller is in his career. Obviously, he's beaten Washington. You know, Washington is difficult to put him in a category, probably like you know, in between European and world level. He maybe doesn't have the heart for a world level sort of operator, but Wack has a good chin, sturdy, and tall. So he'll definitely give something like a different dimension to Miller. Miller's been fighting guys maybe that are in and around his height. He hasn't fought on a tall opponent as far as I know. So yeah, it'll be good to see how he deals with Marius Wack.
He's Irish's future heavyweight champion of the world, undisputed anyway. So we'll get to see how really good he is.
Do you know what? Yesterday on Twitter, I was asked to give my top 10 heavyweights in the world. Do you know what? I actually think it's harder to do that now. The division has actually thinned out quite a bit because obviously Klitschko's gone. David Haye isn't anywhere to be seen. Dependent on your viewpoint, you may decide or may not decide to rank Alexander Povetkin. You know, Erkan Tepa's out there. Lucas Brown, you maybe wouldn't want to rank because of his extenuating circumstances. Chigaev's retired. You know, all of these names who've been in and around the heavyweight division, the Tony Thompsons, they've all gone. So, you know, you've got your top fighters in the world. I think I said AJ, Povetkin, Wilder, Parker, Ortiz. And then the next set, there's a bit of a muchness. You've got your Pulevs, your Steverns, your Takams, your Jenningses. I think Miller is right up there, you know. I think he's top 6 or 7 in the world. I think his win over Gerald Washington is actually very, very impressive form. He's not too far off, and to be fair, Iris has been the one shouting his name out the most.
Yeah,
Gerald Miller.
I'd shut up.
Gerald Miller.
Talk about those levels between the top guys and then the next step down. Gerald Miller is the next step down. He'll get his chance. He'll lose. He won't win a world title. Simple as that. He will not win a world title.
You're a bum, Jay. You're a bum.
He's a bum. I'm just not having it at all. I don't see it. I don't see it. I just, does he beat Wilder? No. Does he beat Joshua? No. Possibly could. I don't know. He might beat Parker now after seeing it, but I don't think so. So I just don't. I don't see what the hype's about. I think he's easily put in the top 7 because there's a handful of elite fighters, and then there's the rest. So perhaps he is top 7. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he's elite, but he's certainly in the mix. Iris, what do you make of the Miller-Watt fight?
I don't think it's a great fight. I think Watt hasn't done anything in years, and he was never much good anyway. Bar Lantern Shaw, all he's good at for beating and getting brain damage. So, I think someone like Watt should retire, to be honest with you. He just takes a pace in every time. So I think Miller will just back him up. And yeah, I think it might be a reasonably exciting fight. I presume I just think it'll be a one-sided beatdown. No, I think Miller will just back him up. And yeah, I think it might be a reasonably exciting. I'm here. What's going on there? Somebody turn on their YouTube.
Sorry, I'm having a bit of problems with the sound. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
What's going on with the beeping, guys? Is it one of you or is it me?
Irish, that is.
I think it's one of you two because me and Jay was silent.
Definitely Irish.
Okay, let me just give me a second, and I'll plug out my mic. Just give me 1 second in case it's that.
Okay. It sounds like something like plugged into a laptop. It could be me. I don't know. But I haven't had it before, so I don't know. But anyway, let's keep it rolling. Frampton has signed with Frank Warren. For me, this is quite a big win for Frank Warren. He's got a decent stable, but one of the problems with his stable is he doesn't have guys who are going to necessarily headline huge headline ticket selling events, and I think Frampton is one of those guys. A big win, I think.
Yeah, it's a bit of a coup for him, I think. It sound like an Eddie Hearn nut hugger here, but if he wanted the big fights, I know he wants the huge fights. He obviously, I said he called out Valdez before. He wants the Leo Santa Cruz fight. I think Eddie will probably get him them, pretty swiftly. Within the next sort of fight. He's obviously got a final eliminator for Scott Quigg, and that's a big coup for Scott Quigg. He shouldn't be anywhere near a world title for me. But I think maybe the money. Obviously, he said he smoothed things over with Eddie. Eddie and Frank were the only the guys that he could potentially sign with, or that he thought of signing with. So well done to Frank. Hopefully, the BT deal, pushes Frampton into a sort of a bigger sort of limelight, and he gets a bit more exposure. I think he's fighting November 18th. I was watching the video on NFL, so he'll be headlining, and Jamie Conlan's fighting for a world title. Oh, good lord! And Paddy Barnes will be on the card. So yeah, let's see how that goes. That's probably a first sort of acid test for Frank and how he'll do under Frank. Hopefully, he gets the big fight soon because very good fighter, and I like his style and look forward to seeing him.
Yeah, I think it's a big acid test, because if you look at the fighters who Frank has worked with so far, you'd have to say that Josh Warrington, who's joined from the Eddie Hearn side, and who's the other one?
Tyrone Nurse.
Yeah, I was going to say Mikey's favourite fighter, Tyrone Nurse. Neither of them have had their careers absolutely take off compared to what they were doing with Matchroom. So, Frampton is at a key acid test. Let's bring Iris back in and check if his microphone's working well. Iris.
We've
Iris?
silenced him. We've silenced him.
Well, the bleeping stopped, Iris, but we now can't hear you at all. To be honest, it's the most sense you've come out with since the last 10 podcasts.
Finally, yeah. This is the way we do it then. Now we know. We don't have to bleep him.
Iris, you are literally silent, mate, if you can hear me. So we can't hear a word you were saying. Jay, anything on Frampton, mate? Sorry, I'm spluttering here.
I think it's a good move for both parties, really. I think the thing is with Frank Warren, he hasn't got that one global, superstar name in his camp, and that's what he's been desperately trying to searching for. He's got these youngsters, the up and comings, but he's not really got that one man. And I think Frampton's going to be that icing on top of the cake for him, really. I think he probably looked at that when he looked at Eddie Hearn, and anyone that goes to Matchroom now is always going to be almost second fiddle to Anthony Joshua. The whole Matchroom Sky train is built on Anthony Joshua, and I think he will get all the exposure he's going to need on BT Sport, and he will be their number one boy. So I think it makes sense for both parties, really. I think it's something that, as I said, that Frank Warren desperately needed. He needed that one big name, and now he's got him. And fair play to him. Congratulations, because I'm sure there must be part of Eddie Hearn that is a little bit pissed with that. So it's nice that the competition's there.
I'm sure there is, because Eddie Hearn's trying to do something in Belfast with Ryan Burnett, isn't he? And
yeah,
you'd have to say that at this stage, Frampton is the A side in terms of Belfast boxing. And
who wouldn't want Carl Frampton? Let's be honest. What promoter wouldn't want him? He's the former world champions, boxed in the States, has got a big name over here. He's a good boxer, good to watch. He's got a good following, especially in Belfast. So, it's a coup for me, definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. Big win for Frank. Irish, you there, mate? Right, we'll have to. I'm sure he'll come back in shortly. And knowing him as I do, I'm sure he'll make up for lost time. It's not been quiet on the Eddie Hearn side. He signed Danny Jacobs, which is potentially an interesting bit of business, looking to put him in with David Lemieux. And he's also announced another Monaco bill, McDonnell Solis rematch, Scott Quigg, Dimitri Bivol, and Chisora as well for the European title. So, what's the reaction to the Eddie Hearn news, guys?
Big news. I mean, Monaco bill, it's not a stellar bill, but some decent fights on there. Caballo versus Chisora, is it, for the European strap? Rematch of McDonnell Solis, that'll be a fairly decent fight, I guess. Who's the other one? Bivol versus Broadhurst. I don't know how Bivol's actually fighting him. I think he's getting upgraded to the regular. I don't know how the WBA do this. And he's fighting and defending against him, and the winner fights Sullivan Barrera. So I don't know why he just didn't fight Sullivan Barrera first. But Bivol is probably, outside the top guys. He's probably in the top 10 for me at light heavy anyway already. But interesting to see if he would face. Andre Ward is obviously retired now, so leave some belts vacant, and hopefully he can, pick up a legitimate strap and move on from there. But yeah, not some decent news, I guess. But more fights made, the better, I guess.
Yeah. What about Danny Jacobs? We talked about him earlier, Jet. I think he's going to be a difficult guy to promote, to be honest, because the big names, Canelo, Golovkin, Big Joe Saunders, want to fight him. And I think David Lemieux is going to be an in-demand name for all of those guys as well. So, I speculated they may move him up to 168, because that's the division where Hearn's got a lot of links. But, at 160, it's not the easiest to make matchups.
Yeah, I don't think he's got like a huge amount of options at 160. As you said, Lemieux, they've mentioned Lemieux as a potential fight. The Luis Arias is a potential fighter. Obviously, that's just kind of a warm-up that they're suggesting. So, you know, there's a lack of options, I reckon, at 160, unless he puts him in with, I hope not. I really hope not. Martin Murray or Paul Smith or something like. Oh God, you know, I don't want to see that. You know, I can't bear like to, you know, just power through that. I cannot do it. So I reckon 168 will put. You know, Jacobs isn't young anymore. Let's be honest. Jacobs is getting on in age. And, you know, he's going to have to move up sooner or later. He's a big guy. I think he came in close to 180 on Fight Night against Golovkin. So it's not like he, you know, it's not like he can't make 168 or he'd be small for 168. I think physique-wise, he'd probably be at 168 pretty handily. So it just depends how he, you know, deals with the punches and that sort of stuff. He dealt with Golovkin, I guess. So I guess we'll see, but yeah, I think 168 will probably be logical for Danny Jacobs, sort of in the neck. Maybe after the Lemieux fight, it's probably a logical step for Jacobs and Hearn. But yeah, good to see that. He seems like a very nice guy, and you know, deserves it after all of his you know, past stuff with cancer and whatnot. So yeah, deserves it, and I'm glad to see him do better, I guess.
I'll make a bold prediction. It won't be too long before Eddie Hearn puts Rocky Fielding in with big names. He's beaten Ryder. He'll probably beat Brophy this weekend. So he's kind of proven at that sort of level. And there isn't really much to do with him. So I just think, you know, at some point, either a Cox or a Groves or a Eubank will lose in the Super Series, or the Gale will need a snack, you know, as a warm-up fight, or even Jacobs, you know, will need a warm-up. I don't think it's too long before Eddie Hearn puts Rocky Fielding in with one of these guys as a sort of sacrificial lamb. That's one of my not so bold predictions. Iris is threatening a return. Iris, give us a try, mate.
Can you hear me now?
Like, mate, your voice is coming through like silk. So
lovely.
Yeah, you're back. You've been talking.
I thought you were going to say like sperm there for a second.
Silk. Close. Yeah, we've been talking about Frampton working with Frank Warren, and we've been talking about Hearn signing Jacobs. Any reaction to either of those bits of news?
Yeah, like I think it's probably really good business for Frank, because now that he kind of has cornered the Irish market. If you look at all the good Irish fighters that are fighting out of Ireland, like Jamie Conlon, Paddy Barnes, you know, Frampton, they can put them all on that one Belfast show, all these Belfast boys, and, you know, it'll be rocking. So it's a good business for Frank. I'm sure he's getting well paid for it. I'm sure BT stumped up their money. You know, that's a coup for BT, to be honest with you. Frampton's probably, would he be the number 2 or 3 in the UK boxing business?
Yeah, he would be.
Like, yeah, he's kind of very popular in Ireland anyway, I know that. But, you know, there's AJ and then there's everybody else, really. And there's him maybe, or James DeGale. He's probably bigger than James DeGale, you know. So good business for Frank. Good to see that he's announced his first fight against TBA.
I did notice.
That's good to keep going. They've changed his name, a new marketing strategy by calling him Reborn. I was looking on BoxRec to see if I could find who Reborn was. I couldn't find him. So I think that's just rebranding. Who was the other one? Yeah, the Jacobs one is interesting now. I find that interesting. Like, to me, that's either one of two things. It's either Matchroom are bringing AJ to America, and Eddie Hearn is going to leverage AJ by using AJ to sign lots of extra fighters to Matchroom and to launch properly in America. So, like, I think there's a chance that is happening. But, you know, rumors, the word in the grapevine is that AJ is going to set up his own company and ditch Matchroom. So, you know, in some cases when people, like, lose one of their major sources of revenue, if your business is that, you go and you try and sign clients from all over the fucking place to to match up. So it could be the opposite. It could be that AJ's leaving and he's got to try and expand somewhere, because once AJ's gone, Matchroom in the UK will lose their cash cow. So it could be one or the two. We'll see which it is.
I can't see leaving for love nor money. Not in a million years.
Well, I think AJ is the type of guy he's big into becoming a billionaire. Like he said, it's very. Did you hear him in that interview, AJ? He said, when he's asked, why did you say you wanted to become a first billionaire in sport? He said, well, you know how it is these days. He said that house prices are very high. It's very hard to buy yourself a house now. Yeah. So so the house prices are, especially around Watford, they're fucking, well into the hundreds of millions to buy yourself a gaff. So like, I just think he's the type of guy who, if anyone's likely to try and copy what Floyd and Oscar did and go out on their own and do it right, I think AJ is the guy to do it. And he set up his own promotional company and he started to sign an odd fighter. So I would not be shocked. I kind of, I think he's the favourite to go out on his own, to be honest with you.
I'll tell you why I don't. It's because of the broadcasters. So Sky and Eddie have got an exclusivity deal, which is a signed contractual deal, as I understand it. Like, there is nowhere else, no other broadcaster who has anything like the proven track record of doing the amount of pay-per-views that AJ is going to need to do.
Look, if AJ says, I want to go on my own to Sky, they'll just go to Matchroom and go, we're going to do AJ on his own. And Matchroom will go, no, you won't. And then they'll say, okay, well, we're just going to... like, they look what happened with Tyson Fury when they wanted to make the fight. They made the fight. They don't give a shite. That's one of those things, they would probably be able to just cancel a contract if they wanted to. It'll happen. Look, money talks. If BT got him or somebody else get him, AJ could go to YouTube. AJ is the type of fighter who could go to YouTube and take all the money for himself. Very easy.
I think Eddie Hearn deserves every ounce of commission he makes off AJ. AJ is not the world's most charismatic talker. He is not the best seller of a fight. And Eddie Hearn has turned him into a monster at the box office. Imagine AJ.
I don't agree though.
He's selling 70,000 tickets. I don't know. I don't.
But look at Mike Tyson. When Mike Tyson was unbeaten on his brutal winning knockout streak, like AJ is on. Like, look at what Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was marketed as a nice boy next door, even though he was a flaming maniac, and he was dull as ditch water. They had him just sitting there being nice as pie, and he sold pay-per-views like you'd never see. He was the face of world boxing. I think a lot of credit is given. I think, people give Eddie Hearn too much credit. I think Eddie Hearn is a very good salesman. I think he's the best salesman in British boxing by far. But people give him all the praise for what his fighters do. And, look, if AJ goes to America, you can hire a charismatic guy to sell a fight. People, it's kind of like mad. Like, who gives Don King all the credit for Muhammad Ali being a superstar? Who gives Don King the credit for Cesar Chavez being a superstar? Most of who gives Bob Arum the credit for Manny Pacquiao being a superstar? People don't. It's the fighters that do it primarily for me, and the promoter is secondarily. But I just think AJ is very likely to go. I've heard Eddie Hearn saying before that he could end up working for AJ. Did you ever hear him saying that?
Yeah, no, you're right, Tom. These are all good points. But what I would say is, Billy Joe Saunders, is a very, very good fighter, a world-class fighter. Terry Flanagan is a world-class fighter.
There's shit to watch, though. That's the
true.
Difference.
Yeah. You make fair points. Points.
The only fighter in England that's got that really explosive, dynamic KO style. The only one in England is him. He's the equivalent of Nigel Benn was in the 90s. And you didn't need Eddie Hearn to sell Nigel Benn.
I think
some fighter styles.
I think Hearn wants to make big pay-per-views in the States with Joshua. I think Hearn wants to launch Joshua on the massive American pay-per-view market. And I think he's probably signing fighters like Danny Jacobs to prop up those efforts.
Well,
I just think that probably the deal will be different, because a lot of fighters, and it's proven over time that they have moved on. You know, Prince Nazim, you know, Ricky Hatton. They'll just, you know, change the contract so the percentage will come down a little bit more, because he might say, right, I'm going out on my own, but okay, I'll give Matchroom X amount of percentage. Part of that percentage is we still do deals with Sky. You know, it's more of that, more of taking control, or more of a percentage of his business and AJ as a brand. And I think Irish Tom's right when he says he's a fighter. You know, Prince Nazim was a big seller because the way he fought, because we all wanted to watch him. Ricky Hatton was that homegrown local lad hero that was a lot was built on, and the traveling following that he had. So it's only a matter of time before AJ goes on his own. He knows his own worth, and if he ever does want to become a billionaire, then that's what he needs to do, and that's what he has to do. And there's no one, if you're that much of a force in boxing, there's no one really that can say anything to him. Sky, anyone, you know, because he's the money, and they have to follow the money.
He's the money. Look, lads, and put it into perspective, right? The Canelo fight was rumored to do 2 million pay-per-views. I don't know if that's true or not. Let's say it did 2 million pay-per-views, and those pay-per-views are selling at probably $80 to $100 a go, right? So that's 16 million. What the hell am I talking about? I don't know why it is. 60, was it $80 times $260 million fight?
60.
Compare that to... No, $80 times 2 million is $160 million on
Correct.
a pay-per-view for that. And you compare that to, say, the Joshua versus Klitschko one, which is a £30 million, probably about a $35 million fight. Yeah. So, like, you see the difference when you go to the States. Like, that was a 5 times a bigger fight than the AJ Vlad one. But if AJ was built in America, he'd be doing those numbers too. He'd be doing the same numbers that Lennox Lewis and Tyson did and Floyd did, because he's an exciting fighter. And, you know, this idea, like, when his contract is up, he'll be getting offers from everybody. And if Sky want to, you know, in all likelihood, the British market, even though that's where he's made all his money so far, if he makes it in America, the British market is an afterthought. That's just the reality of these things. And, you know, he'll be making the big bucks in America if it's done right, and he'll be getting all the offers. And Sky as well, if they want to keep AJ on, they'll just tell Eddie Hearn where to go. You know, assuming Eddie's not going to be still working for AJ, maybe he will be in some capacity. Maybe they'll just give Matchroom 5% instead of 20%. But, you know, look, Floyd made all his money by going solo. The reason why Floyd was the highest paid boxer in the world, say compared to Manny, he probably made twice as much money as Manny. And most of that was because he decided to manage his own career and cut out the middleman.
Yeah, no, you mentioned it. I've looked it up, and there's an article on the Sky Sports website, and it's dated November 2015, saying that AJ has signed a 3-year exclusivity deal with Matchroom. So that takes him through to November 2018. You know, so
two more fights.
That's not a million miles off. You're right. That is not a million miles off whatsoever. So will be fascinating to see how that develops. Okay, cool. Anyone got anything more to throw into the mix there before we move it on? Cool. Okay. So, sorry, were you getting in there, Jay, or just saying no?
No.
Okay. As I mentioned, this will be the last podcast for a few weeks because I'm traveling for the next 2 weeks. So we're going to discuss not just this week's boxing, but we're going to discuss the next 3 weeks' boxing. So I'll rattle through it fairly quickly, and I'll just throw fight names out, and you guys can jump in. So please speak now or forever hold your peace. Let's start with this week in the World Boxing Super Series. Bradis versus Mike Perez. Fascinating fight for me.
Close fight. I think Perez is a dark horse. I think Perez might win, but depends how he can deal with the weight cut.
Sorry, Jet, you think Perez might struggle to cut weight?
No, as in it depends how he deals with the weight cut because he hasn't gone a long distance. He hasn't gone the 12. I think he knocked his opponent out in one round, was it?
That's right. Yeah.
So if he can do the championship distance and do it effectively, I think he'll give Bradis a fair few problems. But Bradis looked competent. He didn't look like the most flashiest boxer against Marco Huck, but he looked fairly decent. So, might be a bit of a cagey one. I don't think it'll be like Dorticus versus Kudryashov, like a bit of a war. I think it'll be a bit more tentative, and they'll try and stick to the boxing. But so I'll pick Perez, but that's not a confident pick. Don't put your house on it.
Yeah, my biggest fear with Perez is the stamina, because he's always been one of these guys who's faded very, very badly in fights. We've seen it time and time again. Carlos DeCam, Bryant Jennings, these were fights he should have won, but he lost. Now, I know he's been in terrible, terrible shape historically, and now he's got a six-pack and he's in fantastic nick. But a six-pack doesn't always represent good stamina. And Mike Perez, even though he's in fantastic condition, he just may not be a fighter who genuinely fights for 12 rounds and has the ability to do that. He may be a low stamina guy. Now, maybe he's whipped himself into shape, but Bradis can fight for 12 rounds. So I think that stamina is a key question. Has losing the weight meant the stamina is there now, or is Perez just a low stamina fighter? That's still an open question for me. In terms of skills, Bradis looks very competent. He looks very good. Perez has some exceptional skills. So my inclination would be Perez, but I think it's a tough fight to call.
I agree.
Oh, Jay or Tom, anything on that one?
I think Bradis for me. I think Bradis wins this. If you look at the difference, I was just looking at the pictures of Perez. The transformation is incredible. Now, Bradis is enrolled with VADA. Perez isn't. I think there's question marks over there. I don't think dropping the weight will necessarily give him the stamina that he's always yearned for. And for me, Bradis wins this. No problem.
I've just seen Mike Perez on points at 8-1 with Bet Victor. That's caught at the BGI, I must admit. Tom, anything from you, or move it on?
Just move it on.
Move it on. Okay, card in Liverpool this weekend. Rocky Fielding versus David Brophy. The return of Ahara Davis versus Farrell. Dodd versus Stalker. Not the best bill, I'm going to be honest. I expect Fielding to beat Brophy and Ahara Davies to win against Farrell. Any predictions, guys?
That it'll be a great night of boxing.
Yeah.
OD's going to win, and Fielding's going to look terrible again.
He's going to look terrible, but win?
Mate, Brophy had a good win out last time out against Zach Dunn, was it? For the Compubox titles. So, don't put your house on Rocky Fielding winning. If it goes to points, he's definitely winning, though. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brophy's got half a chance there. Depends whether he takes it or not.
I've been watching Ahara Davis on repeat for 3 days now, and I've just come to the conclusion that it's impossible to OD on OD.
I did on OD a long time ago.
Good stuff. All right, not a vintage week of boxing. I must admit, I am looking forward to Bradis Perez. Oh, one other fight I didn't mention. Jet's favourite, Paul Butler versus Stuart Hall. Quite possibly the most sought-after rematch since Frotsgroves 2, I guess. This is the one the fans are screaming for. I'm going to take it no one's got any comments on that, but if you do, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Paul Butler's turned into Joe Gallagher. Like a style of fighter. So just expect the hands up, anti-crawler, try and walk Stuart Hall down.
Do you think Hall's got a chance? Because he's a much bigger man than Butler, so if it turns into that kind of fight, it plays into Hall's hands a bit.
You know what? Paul Butler's obviously moved up from Superfly, hasn't he? He moved up once, and then he's moved up since the Tete fight. He has no business being at bantamweight. There's guys like Superfly that are even bigger than him in their natural sort of super bantamweights, maybe even featherweights, cutting down. He just has no business being at bantamweight. When he faces a half decent guy at the weight, he's gonna lose. And yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Okay. Next week in the World Boxing Super Series, none other than Chris Eubank Jr. taking on Avni Yildrim. Any predictions on this? I haven't checked out Yildrim yet.
Easy fight for Eubank Jr. I was watching Yildrim today, and he's come forward. Doesn't throw a great amount of punches. Perfect opponent for Eubank Jr. Very much like an Arthur Abraham, but like a younger, fresher version. Nothing special about him. Will stand in front of Eubank, exactly what he wants. The Eubanks are very good now at picking their opponents and matching Eubank Jr. After Billy Joe Saunders, they kind of realise they know the value of a winning streak, and they know his value. Now, Yildrim is, Arthur Abraham was perfect for him. Quillen was perfect, even though it shouldn't have been a pay-per-view, but it got a lot of controversy. He got him onto a pay-per-view platform. He got him some buys. He got him this dodgy world title. Arthur Abraham was perfect. He's a name. He's not what he was. Knew that Eubank would be able to just outpace him, outpunch him. And Yildrim is no different. Let's be honest. In this super middleweight series, the only fight that we really want to see, or that's going to be the biggest fight, is Groves Eubank. Smith Skoglund, Smith possibly Brand Bramer, okay, Jamie Cox, George Groves. None of these fights really excite like the Chris Eubank Jr. fight. So it's a very calculated decision to get him through to the semi-finals. If he loses, he still gets that money for the first round, and he carries on. And he got beaten by, a world champion. If not, he beats Groves. He gets a world title and probably goes on to win the whole thing. So very calculated and a very, very easy. It's a buy as far as I'm concerned for Eubank Jr.
Yeah, he hasn't fought anyone who moves or anyone who's in the least bit slippery since that Billy Joe Saunders fight.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't checked out this Yildrim, so I don't want to judge him without seeing him. But everyone I speak to tells me he's going to be there in front of Eubank, and that's the kind of fighter who's been made.
All you need to do is watch a couple of rounds. You'll watch a couple of rounds and you'll see it straight away. There's nothing special about him. Nothing. He's very come forward, very straight lines. Tries to put a lot of weight behind his punches, but they're not quick. They're not overwhelming. Like Eubank, he overwhelms, doesn't he, with the amount of punches he puts together and the venom he puts behind them. It's like that, but 100 times slower. So yeah.
All I know is that Dwyer is picking Yildrim. He says he's a better boxer.
No way.
Seriously?
Yeah, and I have a prediction for you. Chris Eubank Sr. will be rocking some Louis Vuitton and he'll be looking dead sexy in that ring.
He might buy a pair of new boots, though. He might buy a pair of new women's boots.
I hope so, because there's nothing quite like a sharp, shiny pair of shoes on a man. That kind of a leprechaun look. It's very hot.
Pointed, they have to be pointed, brogued and pointed, with a patent leather, brown leather, and some jeans off his crotch.
Style icon. Okay. Anyone else got anything to add on Eubank Yildrim?
I have a question. How much would you pay, like pay-per-view, if during the fight Chris Eubank Sr. was to wear crotchless trousers in the corner?
It sounds like that's got 25 written all over it.
I think they could push pay-per-view prices up to American pay-per-view prices if you got that. Sorry, I'm going to mute myself now.
Leather chaps. That's what he needs to wear. It's as simple as that.
Oh dear. Do you have anything from you on Eubank?
Easy win.
Easy win. Yeah. Okay. So the final week I'm away, we have Crawler Burns and Groves v Cox. So 2 domestic bust-up. Groves v Cox, obviously, once again, in the World Boxing Super Series. I'm going Crawler and Groves. Jet.
Don't care about Crawler and Burns. Groves wins.
Jay?
I think Burns is going to struggle. Is he dropping down in weight? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, so lightweight.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was that like welterweight.
They said ages ago it was at lightweight, so I'm not sure if it's changed. They said like when the fight was made, they said it'll be fine. They would both fight at lightweight. So Eddie Hearn done an interview on IFL, and he said it'll be interesting to see how Ricky Burns deals with the weight cut. So
yeah, you're right. It is lightweight. Yeah, I always thought Ricky Burns didn't look very good at light welterweight. Anyway, I thought he looked a bit heavy. Yeah, I think they only made that fight because the
DeRocco.
Yeah, the DeRocco thing became available.
I think it's a cash out, really, to be honest. For Burns, I think it's a swan song.
I think they're both on the slide anyway, so it's not going to be a fight that I'm going to necessarily be happy to watch.
I think Crawler's probably the fresher out of the 2, and he'll get the opportunity to go on. But I think it's the end of the line for Burns. Really, he's had a good career, and it's just about getting the cash in the bank now for retirement, I'd say. And for Groves, easy win. I mean, is Cox any better than Chudinov?
Cox better than Chudinov? He's probably worse, mate.
Exactly. So it says it all, really, doesn't it?
The only thing I think Cox has going for him is the southpaw stance, but I don't even think that's going to be a big deal for George Groves. I think he smothers a lot of his work as well, Jamie Cox. So I can't see him winning this fight.
Yeah, I think the only thing with Cox is you get the impression, I don't think he's very good, but you get the impression he is just hard as nails. Like, he could maybe just take the biggest beating you've ever seen for 8 or 9 rounds, like a horrific beating, and not get knocked out. And you know what Groves is like? If Groves is just teeing off on him, rounds 9 and 10, Groves is going to be absolutely gassed. And Cox is that kind of come forward inside style, that could hypothetically cause Groves problems. But if Groves boxes smart, if he flicks his jab out, Huey Fury-esque, Cox doesn't have anything for Groves at range, I don't think.
Experience levels will tell. It's just chalk and cheese, really. Groves has been in so many big fights now that he seems to have got, now he's won that title, he seems to have got that little bit of composure. And, he doesn't let his heart go and uses his head a lot more. So it's not going to be, it's another buy for me. And if you look at the standard of opponents Jamie Cox has fought, I mean, it's not even on the same level. I mean, the last guy he fought, was 19 wins and 26 losses. It's just like, and it went to points. So
in that fight either, yeah.
It's one-sided.
Yeah. Let's go over to the world's biggest Jamie Cox fan, Iris. How do you see it?
I hope he kills him the Irish way. That's what I'm hoping for. I think it's Groves should win, but you never know what Groves is a walking disaster. So if a fella can just get through Groves, you never know. But you have to make him favourite. I was just looking on the BoxRec website there for Ricky Burns. It says there that his nickname is the Rickster.
It is.
Yeah, how the hell did he get? How did he get that name? What's that about?
Well, you wondering how he came up with it?
Yeah.
The less airtime that we give to Ricky Burns and Anthony Crawler, the better. Please don't talk about this fight more than we have to.
But the Rickster, that's a great name. I wonder how he came up with that.
God. Oh.
What was the one you said earlier that was genuinely funny? It's probably the funniest thing you've ever said, Tom. You had one.
There's loads of them, gossip. You have to narrow it down a bit more.
I've forgotten it already. Oh, yeah. It's the thing about the house prices and AJ wanting to be a billionaire because house prices are very expensive. I'll give you credit for that one. I thought that was genuinely hilarious.
But I'm not making that up.
No,
That's actually what he said.
I know. Yeah.
So you're saying my best joke ever is a quote?
It is a
Fuck
quote.
you.
Yeah.
Plagiarism. You plagiarised one of the most boring men in boxing.
I'll tell you
Seriously,
what.
quoting is not plagiarism. I had inverted commas up. You could see me in my house. I had my inverted commas hands up.
Nah, I need to see that. It's not proof.
I bet the Burns Crawler winner gets fed to Luke Campbell.
Most likely, yeah, for like a fight eliminator world title, something like that.
Not like a Silence of the Lambs way.
With a nice glass of Chianti. Yes. Okay, guys, we've in rapid way we've made our way through the next 3 weeks boxing. Anyone got any other fights they want to bring up from the schedule up ahead? In that case, let me run to the panel and see if anyone's got any final words before we take a break for a few weeks. Jay, let's start with yourself, mate.
I'm thinking about doing the Great British Bake Off podcast if you're interested.
Nice. You're gonna have a lot of time in your hands without the BG podcast, obviously.
Yeah, that's what we're going to fill it next 2 weeks. Is Great British Bake Off.
Get a bit of Great British Bake Off. Okay.
No,
I better hope you come back before you lose your sanity.
it's all right. You'll be able to listen to it when you're away. Don't worry. I'll send you a link.
That's it. Jet, anything from yourself, pal?
No, nothing from my side.
Good stuff. Irish Tom.
I think I've said enough.
Wow, short and sweet, guys. We've managed to get through it slightly quicker than usual, which is a surprise. But we've covered a lot of ground. As I mentioned.
Oh, I have something.
There you go.
Just because we have the Rio taking over starting now, but not many people know that Rio is Irish as well. I think his grandmother was Irish. So Rio is going to be the Irish takeover. It's just segueing into the Rio takeover, and apparently he's had his first boxing training session. Just watch a bit of it. Excellent. Can't wait for it all. Can't wait for the story to be told and to unwind, and follow him on his journey.
He looks naturally very heavy-handed, I must say. I mean, some of the power is, I'll be honest, it is quite frightening. It won't take long for Rio Ferdinand to be classed as the hardest puncher in the UK, potentially the hardest puncher in the world, maybe the hardest puncher since my title.
Okay.
This is power, I will say. Rio takeover. Right. I'm leaving you guys, and as I've said several times, I'm not here for the next 2 weeks. No podcast for the next 2 weeks. I guarantee next Wednesday I'll look at my phone and I'll have 50 messages saying, why is the podcast not on? So that's why I keep saying it, is to try and let everyone know in advance. Because I know certain people, cancel their evenings in with the wife. They cancel their big night out to be here with us, and we appreciate that. Please hit the thumbs up button, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this after it's been uploaded to the channel. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Please subscribe to Jet's channel, which is Boxing Discussions. And apart from that, I'm out. I'll be back in a few weeks. Many thanks for watching, guys.
Happy Wednesday, and happy Wednesday.
There's only one BG.
There's only one BG.
Yes. Ta-da.